This is The Vocal Minority.
Hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Freeman. It's my great pleasure to introduce you to the two best guys in the podcast game. Welcome to The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve. Come on this journey with the boys and make sure to follow, comment, download, and like. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go grab a couple of cold pops and remind Andy Dufresne that the world's best podcast, The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve, is just about to start.
Well, we're starting now.
The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. That's the most reasonable man in show business, endorsing The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve. Everyone loves Morgan Freeman, right?
Of course, and we love Andy Dufresne, which is there's some parallels between what happened to poor Andy and us. Like, we're forcing this upon you whether you want it or not. So here we are. I would recommend just going along. You know,
yeah, I mean, don't make us ask you to squeal like a pig or something. You know, like let's just get comfortable here.
And that's not to discount sexual assault or anything. I'm just saying, like, this is happening. So I would just enjoy us. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you should just go along with rape. I'm just saying you should go along with us.
Yeah.
That was terrible. So.
Yeah, I know. You're reading into it too much, dude. I know what you meant. We just talked right before we came on the air, dude. I was like, oh, man, I trust you, Steve. I don't even look at your behavior anymore.
Everyone's overanalyzing everything we're saying of late, so maybe I'm become hypercritical. I will say I spent a lot of the last week arguing with people online. Not all arguments. Some were fellow, liberals or people uniting around Kamala. There was a lot of positivity on the internet this past week. But
yeah,
for every person that loves us, there's 10 that hate us on the right, and they're very vocal. And boy, yeah, I heard it a lot this week, and it got a little much. There was a couple of nights I went to bed this week. I'm just like, I got to unplug. I went and rode the dirt bike for hours the other day because I needed to just get away from any device.
You got to do it, dude. I mean, I feel bad for you. I don't know if you've been following. This is Simone Biles' redemption tour in these 2024 Olympics because, well, last time she had to leave the Olympics and she did it for mental health reasons. I've been seeing these vignettes on her story and where she is now, and she's talking about that. Like, I had to get off Twitter. I was seeing like, she screwed over America. She's a terrible person. I fear that for you to read these comments all the time and hope that you just read them with an eye to be like, F you, moving on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I sort of criticized Simone Biles a couple of years ago of, can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. This is what you do for a living. People, yeah, there is pressure. What do you know? There's media, there's sponsors, there's all this stuff. So I don't know. I kind of feel the same way. Like, this is what we're doing. Like, we're stepping into this fray. We're going head first into the storm. So I feel like I have to get out there and defend what we're saying. But as we've said on the show many times, I'm not trying to change any conservative's mind. I'm not delusional. But right. I want people to see us fighting the good fight. I feel all those people that read the comments but don't actually comment themselves, that if some of them are middle of the road and seeing like, here's a couple of middle-aged white dudes fighting for Kamala, like maybe this is cool. Maybe this is a good thing.
Yes. You've always said that. It's the people that are just looking to be led by example. And I think it's a great thing. But when it becomes too much for the mind and your mental health, I mean, that's serious stuff, right? You got to step back, and maybe you need to be able to control, like you did. I need a ride today. I got to get out of this Twitterverse for a little while and get my head straight.
I'll take a break November 6th, all right, the day after the election. But speaking of that, by the way, like this whole pop culture perception of like videos you see online and people like us defending Kamala Harris and encouraging people to vote blue. My son the other day said to me that if I was not as political as I am and as news savvy as I am, and if I did not tell him all of the things I know about Trump and about politics, my son Nick said that he would be a Trump supporter.
Really? Yes. Why is that, dude? Did he tell you why?
That's the question. Why is it? Because he says on his social media that all he sees are like teenage dudes just like, Trump is awesome, Trump is cool, Trump, Trump, Trump. He was like, I see so much pro-Trump stuff that if I didn't know any better, I would assume he's the cool guy to go after.
That's incredible, dude, because, I see all those, but I'm well read enough to know that, like, all that's bullshit. But if you're not reading for yourself, finding the truth, then, yeah, I guess maybe you would be. especially with young men, juvenile boys. This is that moment of outrage and screw the system. Like, I want the guy who's cool and lets me stay up past midnight.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So that's why I feel like we need to have as many likes, comments, any of this pop culture, interweb, social media stuff we can push for Kamala. The better off the casual observers, they will pick up on that kind of stuff. So yeah, follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Threads. We're on all of those things. Vocalminority.net is our website. And what's our comment line, Nick?
Oh, you can comment and say anything, and then we just play it, unless it's illegal, which not really anything is. So, well, maybe you can't say you're going to kill anybody or anything like that, but call us 844-48-VOCAL, and you can say pretty much anything you want to, and we'll play it on the show.
Yeah, I mean, people have certainly been threatening us of late, and other people don't seem to understand past tense versus future intent. Like, a couple of people said that we threatened Trump's life because we said, like, gee, I wish the guy didn't miss. Like, I hope you understand we're saying we wish in the past tense that the guy that already tried it, that, yeah, if he hadn't missed, I wouldn't be crying a river or would have solved a few problems. I am not saying in the future tense that I hope someone else does it again or hope the next guy, like, that's what the dude from Tenacious D put his foot in his mouth over was, yes. I hope next time Trump, gets shot. Like, now you can't say it like that. We're talking in the past. We can't change the past, people. I spent a lot of time wishing I could, but I can't. I don't have that power. So you threatening to call the Secret Service on me for wishing something in the past had happened differently, that's not a threat, okay?
Have you ever noticed that nuance isn't real big in the Republican Party, Yeah,
I have noticed that, actually, yeah. So, yeah, it's a fun time we're living in. So check out all the social media stuff and, help spread all that around.
You've been talking lately about you just moved into a real red area and how that's kind of changed your way of life to a certain extent. And you're around Republicans all the time and you're in Trump country. I experienced just a small fraction of that on Saturday night. I went to a concert, and let me tell you that this was a stadium filled with I would imagine all really Republican hardcore, maybe a lot of the MAGA crowd, stuff like that. So it was, and
this liberal Washington state.
Yes, dude. And I mean, it was obvious that people had driven over from the right side of the state to come on over to the lefty liberal.
I was going to say, you should explain that part because, I lived in California for years, which is a overwhelmingly blue state, but that does not mean there's not staunch red parts of California.
For sure. Our eastern side of the state is, predominantly red. But the left side, I mean, we overpower you. Okay. There's a lot of us over here. So pipe down.
We overpower you.
Listen, this was a Chris Stapleton concert. Okay. This was the headliner. It's not a ticket I bought. And if I did, I wouldn't be afraid to admit it. I didn't know much about Chris Stapleton. But what I did know, I was like, he seems cool, seems like a good artist. And then I talked to you and a couple of other people that were like, oh yeah, he's real good. He's great.
Chris Stapleton is great. And I won't allow the country world to co-opt him. He is not a country artist by any modern definition. If you want to call him classic country, maybe I'll give you that. But he does not fit the modern version of country music at all. I would consider him, Nick, to be Southern blues rock.
Musically, I would agree with that. As he's putting a concert on, he feeds into this country. He does. I mean, just for example, and this isn't bad or anything, but I've never heard it at another concert that leaned a little more blue. Oh, hey, did anyone got any truck drivers in here tonight? And then, anyone love a truck driver? Anyone use something that a truck driver delivered? He was really feeding into the crowd there, which I can't blame him. I love truck drivers. I just don't usually talk about them at concerts, I mean, this does, I guess, speak to the perception that country music is more of a conservative genre, even though Nick and I are in the world of radio. Country music, country format is actually the number one format of music in the country nowadays, because so many, urban white dudes in places like Seattle, San Francisco, like liberal cities, a lot of people do love country music, but it definitely leans to the right. And I will just say real quick, I think Chris Stapleton is a phenomenal musician. I mean, he writes well and his voice is amazing, but I mean, he's got to know who his base is, right? Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's got to play to him a little bit, and he wasn't overly obnoxious about it all. Like, he didn't ever make me feel uncomfortable there. It was the people around me that I was like, wow, I'm a fish out of water here. What I'm wearing.
Mega stuff or Confederate flags or any of that?
To be fair, no. I was seeing just, these were all cowboys and cowgirls. I mean, I wore jeans and a t-shirt, to the show, like I normally would go to any concert. And these were people dressed up in costume of, cowboy hats and boots that had never been worn before, stuff like that. So
I know a lot of city dwellers that have told me that. I love dressing up country for the night. Like, to them, it is like if you're going to a Renaissance fair, like you dress up in medieval clothing for the night.
Totally. And I'll tell you what, I met nice people. This is, you'll find this interesting. I took my mother, to this concert because this was not just Chris Stapleton. And this also says something about Chris Stapleton is that.
Sorry, is this the incest theme? Is that why you took your mom?
No. It doesn't have anything to do with that. I'll tell you why. But
if you brought your sister, I apologize.
Yes. Come on. Let's not get crazy. Sheryl Crow was the opener. She's a cool chick, right? Democrat.
And very progressive, yes.
Very progressive. And then Willie Nelson, was played next. That's who I was there to see, to be fair, but the whole thing was good. And that's another progressive guy that has spoken out against Trump. So he had those two people on his ticket. I think that he's a decent guy, Chris Stapleton, with his politics.
He probably leans more towards the center because I've never heard him get political, leaning into the country lifestyle. Like, yeah, sure. But in fairness, he's not one of these big and rich types or whatever that have been overtly Trump supporters.
Great singer. He's a entertainer at heart. I mean, he puts on a show. He said right in the beginning, like, if you've ever seen me before, I'm not going to talk a whole bunch and I'm going to play as much as I possibly can. And he did that. So
nice.
People were into it. The crowd, very interesting, okay? Because like I said, I brought my mother. I'm walking her down these stairs, and she's close. She's riding on 80 in a couple of years. So I was helping her down where there was no railing. I just held my hand out for her. When she went to sit down, she had to go in front of some people. This cowboy puts his hand up to help her in. I was like, oh, I get both. Okay, I'm going to get the pricks, cowboys, but I'm also going to get the gentlemen. You know what I mean? So,
did you steal a watch? Was it all gentlemen?
No, it was okay. He did all right. Yeah. But fast forward to about 10 minutes into the show, this whole group, the one that had helped and the rest of his group, are just pretty much having sex on the chairs in front of my mom and I.
Just dry humping, making out? What do you mean?
First of all, this is really annoying because they had 4 seats and they had 6 people. So 2 of the guys and girls were sitting on each other's laps. And they kept going back and forth. Like the guy would sit on the girl's lap and then she'd get tired and they'd switch. They made it really hard to see because, it was so tall and they were right in front of us.
I'm surprised an usher didn't break that up, actually. That's got to be some fire code violation,
Completely, dude. And I didn't want to be the guy that went and got the usher, Like I was hoping that the usher would see and they would take care of it. But, they were like just moving their butts around on penises and stuff. And my mom is sitting there and she was just like, oh my gosh, Nikki, what is going on? And you got, Chris Stapleton just rocking out in the background. I'm like, we don't have to stay the whole show, Mom. She was just there to see Willie Nelson, too. So,
in fairness, Butts on Penises is one of Stapleton's biggest hits. So,
yeah, it's a great band name. It's a great song for Stapleton. But I'll give you my quick thing on Willie Nelson, okay?
How much pop was in the air? That's my question.
Not as much as I thought there would be. There was plenty coming from the stage area. He was being true to himself. But in the crowd, I just saw a few puffs go up. He's 91, okay? I've been a Willie Nelson fan since I was a small child. And I thought, I need to go see him. This could be it. This could be the last time.
I will predict this probably is his last tour. I mean, how much longer could he possibly keep going?
It's incredible, dude. I don't know how the man does it, but he was a little worse for the wear. You could tell he was 90. And
is he the Joe Biden of the country music world right now?
no, he was probably more in tune than Joe Biden. Okay. But this is what annoyed me. And I don't want to say anything bad about Willie Nelson, but a lot of his songs, he would sing a line or two and then talk the songs throughout the rest. So, like I got tired of him talking the lyrics out. And I've been down that road before, just kind of singy talk it. And so I was like, he doesn't have the breath that he used to have. I understand it. He's 91, but he still put on a decent show. Glad I got to see him.
Well, I was going to say, you got to see a living legend. And that's interesting commentary, too, on, does pot cause lung cancer? Does pot make you senile? I mean, he's 91, and I know you said he's showing his age, but he seems to be showing his age, not years of pot smoking making him dumb or retarded or, I used the R word, making him dumb or stupid or whatever, He was sharp as a tack, dude. The only way he was showing his age, and, they say your nose and ears never stop growing, because he wears a bandana as a headband, his ears, I could just tell how long, they were like 10 inches long, dude. I was like, oh my gosh, he's got the biggest ears I've ever seen. Wow. Interesting. People like him and Keith Richards. I mean, sometimes I think maybe I should dial back on the pot use or something, but then I don't know. They seem to be doing just fine, living their best life. He just got the song Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die. Yeah. And that was a crowd favorite. I mean, that's when the pot came out and everyone was hooting and hollering. And it's also an interesting commentary that I've mentioned before, that so many conservatives, if we could all just not talk politics with each other, we could have a perfectly good time together. I'm big into the off-road dirt biking world, and I don't know why, but it leans conservative. There's a bunch of dudes that I've either ridden with or I end up talking to at a supercross or motocross race where that shared interest, hey, you're a good dude, we're talking, we're having a nice time. Politics, everything would just blow off the fucking rails. But, God, I don't want to tell people not to talk politics, but some of you conservatives, like, you'd have more friends if you didn't. Yeah, that's true, dude. There's such a thing that's happened to America that, like if we don't talk about it, we can get along. But now that I know your politics, like it's not just that I have policy disagreements with you. Like these are hardcore, fundamental, how you treat people things that we disagree on. And it's harder for me to like you. So, what's better, Steve, for the Klan to be quiet and infiltrate your communities, or do we want them to wear their sheets out and about so we know who they are? Boy, that's a loaded one. When it comes to politics, yes, I'd rather know who you are. And that is the unfortunate upside of the downside that Trump has brought out, emboldening all of these idiot racists. Like, I'd rather know who you are. But there are events and times where we should fall back to the old don't talk politics and religion. When you're at a concert, when you're at motocross, like, can't we all just be here for shared interest and have a nice time? If you can look past the fact that they're racist and homophobic, you can do that if you want to. Ignorance is bliss. Don't let me know that you're that way. You're right. I would love to just be a drooling, bumbling idiot that loved life, not knowing what's happening. Chappelle had a great moment. You know who Emmett Till is? Emmett Till, a black guy that got lynched a long time ago. Yes, and this was the story of there was a white woman coming from a grocery store, and he whistled at her and said, like, wow, you're beautiful. 4 days later, all these white guys show up, standing over him in his family's house in his bedroom, and they take him, and his family never sees him again until 5 days later, he's floating in a river. He's bloated and beaten, and his mother said, I want him to be buried open casket. Okay. I want him to be buried open casket so the world sees what's going on here. And it was a great move that she made to show everybody exactly what was happening. But it came out on the white lady that left that supermarket on her deathbed. She said, I made it up. He didn't he didn't really do that. Wow. And Dave Chappelle was saying, like, you fucking made it up. Like the sickest thing I could possibly imagine. But she was like, you know what? The course of that one lie sent this into action
that everyone saw his body and things in the civil rights movement started to change. And he was like, it's the way I'm starting to look at Trump, because he's been terrible, but I see it starting to circle back around where, like, maybe we needed this, you know. It's an odd way to look at it.
The mixed blessing. Yeah, boy. I mean, yeah, we've heard that a lot over the years in pop culture, movies, and everything else of, you know, the white woman blaming the black guy for getting mugged or raped or whatever it is. And so, but I mean, I guess that's a good perspective to look that, you know, sheesh, in death, he brought attention to a terrible, you know, topic that maybe did more good, but
I think we can look at it that way. I mean, maybe Emmett Till would not be able to look at it that way when you're the victim, you know, but
it's the benefit of hindsight. No one at the time would have thought that, or if they knew the one was lying, but I guess silver linings are easier to see in the rearview mirror. So there is that. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I would have thought that would be the one thing that white rednecks could have bonded with this kid over. Like, oh, you're catcalling, harassing a woman? Like, hey, we do that too, man. Like, let's all go harass white ladies together. Like,
right, exactly.
Can't bond over anything. But yeah, you got to be careful with the guys you hang out with in this world. And sometimes, talking politics and religion is not a good thing. But I would also argue, how good of a friend are you if you don't know the politics or religion of one of your buddies?
You should be able to tell just how they stand on social issues, how they treat people, you know. I think it could be harder, though. You get a Republican like my brother that if I was hanging out with him and didn't know his politics, and I was just basing our friendship off the way I saw him treat people, I wouldn't have an idea, dude. So, I mean, they are out there. But yeah, you should probably know when you're if you hang out with anyone for more than a day, you should kind of know where they are politically, even if you haven't talked politics, right?
Yeah. I think maybe acquaintances that you do go ride with or go to some concert with, maybe that doesn't really matter. But an actual friend in this day and age, and this is one of the things I got yelled at on Reddit this week about, was someone said, you know, I don't want to date someone of a different political opinion. And I commented, you shouldn't. It's a moral compass issue nowadays. It's not just the good old days if we can agree to disagree. Now it's about, do you believe people should be treated fairly? Do you believe in science? You know, so it is a moral compass issue, but I don't know. I got an article here talking about red flags in a friendship that you should not ignore. We talk a lot about relationships, but friendships.
Friendships, dude, are the relationship of the people who don't have sex, right? I mean, we're still in a relationship, right?
Right.
Even if we had a drunken night of sex at one time, like, we're just friends, dude. And
it was one time.
Yeah. I never look for the red flags with you. I got to be honest.
Well, I think you and I have earned credibility with each other. I mean, we're going on 20-something years, you know, in this relationship, which for both of us is the longest running relationship outside of a family member that we were. But yeah, you got to earn that stuff. You got to earn the credibility.
Yeah. I have other friendships that I look for, or maybe if I don't look for the red flags, I still see them.
Well, you know, we recently had our producer of, you know, many episodes and years just go storming off this show. And I saw with his dramatic exit that he and I were not actually friends. I always thought we were. But I've realized looking back now that he was really friends with you and he really tolerated me. And it apparently reached a breaking point recently over Democratic liberal politics that we're all on the same side of. But this whole topic of should Biden quit or not, like, that became so divisive. He just freaking erupted on us. And so I'm wondering, will there be any red flags in here that I should have seen with Brewski?
This could be ruining our relationship, dude.
I'm okay living in denial. So
yeah.
All right. First one on the list is your friend constantly puts you down. Okay. Now, I'll tell you, this is something I had to talk about in therapy before. Growing up in my small town in Michigan, I had the same little group of friends. And one of the only times in those days that I was suicidal was in like 7th and 8th grade. Our friend circle went through this toxic phase where we were all just constantly ripping on each other. And I was always good, and I do it on the show. Like, I'll be the butt of a joke, and I'll make they make some joke about me wearing glasses. I'll make a joke too. Like, I'll add to it.
Sure.
But it spiraled so badly that just for like 2 years, it was just toxic. Everyone was ripping on everyone constantly, and
actual feelings getting hurt.
Oh yes, yeah. Okay. I mean, and it was overt. Like, if one of us saw the other like getting upset or something, everyone pile on even more. And
Right.
And I think we grew out of that phase, but yeah, I don't know. Do you have friends that are always demeaning or putting you down, criticizing?
Maybe I have a real good awareness of that because I just won't hang out with you. Like if my friends, even like I would say it would be different and weird with you, that it would probably take a long time, and I would say to you, like, you're being such a douchebag lately, dude. What's up? But if I just have a friend I see every once in a while, if they were like that to me, I just would stop hanging out with them. At this age, it would have been tougher as a high school kid or something, when you got a group of people.
Yeah. This article talks about healthy friendships should involve mutual respect and support. If your friend often criticizes you, belittles your accomplishments, or makes you feel bad about yourself, it's a major red flag. Now, let me just say, I think it's okay being good friends to call each other out every now and again. Like, dude, you may be out of line on this one, or how did you not see the way you talked to that coworker of ours? Like, having some level of accountability with each other is healthy, but just repeated criticisms over the years, constantly poking at you, which I got to say, looking back on my relationship with Brewski, I think that there was a lot of that. He was always poking at me and trying to take me down a notch, and always trying to, short circuit my arguments.
Yes. Yeah. No, looking back on it, I see that for sure, of where he would point specific things out where it would open my eyes and be like, oh, you have resentment, right. To say something like that. And that popped out in, different places throughout the years.
Yeah. Any modern guy I've met, I wouldn't put up with any of that crap for more than 5 minutes. So I would have weeded someone out before they could even become a quote unquote friend in this day and age. Like you said, back in high school, it's a little different. But yeah, nowadays, my radar's on.
But it's interesting to think about with a friendship you've had for a long time that turns into that. Because, like you said, we give each other somewhat of the benefit of the doubt because you've earned it. But how long do you put up with it? Well, now we know our answer. It's just a couple of years. And then you got to go.
Yes. The next one on the list is they're always playing the victim. And again, Brewski's going to keep coming up in this episode. I'm sorry, because this is a great example of someone who I thought was a friend, and then I wonder if it wasn't or not. And I don't know. It seems like some of the topics I poked at Brewski on, like religion and whatnot, he did always seem to end up making himself the victim in that. Like, oh, you're talking about me and my family, my grandparents. I'm like, no, I was just talking about it. I think religion's dumb in general. Like, why are you taking it so personally? Why are you making yourself the victim? I didn't say that.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're right. I feel like he's developed into that more recently. Our old friend Brewski, I didn't feel that he was so much that way, but he did have some of that Bostonian pride where, like, I'm right, this is how it is, and screw you if you don't agree. He's always had that, but yeah, he did start taking things real personal from you.
Yeah, absolutely. He became a bit of the old man on the porch, I felt like, in the bathrobe, yelling at the kids to get off the lawn.
Yes, dude. He was the Clint Eastwood in that movie that he made, like he was angry about life in general.
Yeah. How about this? These are red flags to look for in friendships. They disregard your boundaries. Now, this is a tricky one on the Brewski topic because, the guy freaked out a lot on the show, and Nick and I always tried to remind him that, hey, we're doing a show here. We're trying to put on a content, develop a show. Like, it's okay to argue. And we would always remind him that if we were just sitting in a bar having beers, I would respect these boundaries of religion or politics. I wouldn't push so hard. But on the show, that's what we're here to do. But in real life, I always respect people's boundaries. As soon as I know there's a topic that upsets someone, I adjust myself.
Of course you do. This conversation goes back 20 years or more, where we had, when we started this show, this exact conversation. Like, hey, we're going to have conversations we may not have sitting in a bar because we're not going to press each other like that in real life all the time. But we're trying to create a conversation for people to join in and take a side or see all sides, whatever it may be. And as soon as we turn the mics off, everything's good. That has to be the way it is. And he lost that somewhere along the way. But yeah, you're right.
I recently had somebody tell me that, just because I told you one of my triggers doesn't mean I want to be treated like I'm a sensitive child or whatever. It's not that you should treat somebody like they're some child if they have a boundary, but if somebody points out something that's a trigger issue for them, what else are you supposed to do with that? other than try to be more mindful next time, try to be more respectful. Even if I still feel the way I feel, like I know if it upsets you, isn't that make me a good person to try to be a little more sensitive?
And you did that specifically with Brewski, but I think you would do that with anyone, any person in your life. That's just part of being a good person. Is like, oh, if I know that affects him this way, even if that's not the way I mean it, like I'll be cognizant of that. I'm not going to go all in on it to try and hurt him. So you did that. I don't know what else you could have done, really.
No, I always say, it's not my fault that I stepped on your trigger. Like, I don't know that's your trigger, but once you point it out, then, yeah, you should probably readjust a little bit.
Totally.
Which leads to the next thing on this list, though. Red flags in friendships. You feel drained after spending time with them.
That's such a good one.
Yes. How many shows did you and I talk to each other afterwards and be like, good God, tiptoeing around him is just so draining. Like, I'm trying to be respectful, but I feel it's mentally exhausting.
It got bad towards the end. We loved having Brewski on the show, but when it started to get to the point where the only thing he wanted to do was argue, it was exhausting. It was draining, to argue.
Yeah. I have another friend in life, and you'll probably figure out who he is by describing him, but he says a lot of pro-Trump things, but then also claims to be kind of center of the road. But there's a lot of things that keep coming up that sound very conservative, and I kind of wonder what his true politics are. But I do find it a little mentally draining to sit there and let him vent about, why Trump may be right on some things. And I feel the need to kind of bite my tongue because he knows damn well what my opinions are. But I'm sitting here thinking, like, why are you even having this conversation with me? I hate the guy. So it is mentally draining to sit through those things and try to be the nice guy.
Yeah, I got a few of those people in my life, too. It's funny because there are such polar opposite sides to that, where you have friends in your group, and these are the friends you should be cherishing and adoring, is that when you leave spending time with that person, you feel energized and you feel excited about life. It is the total opposite of that. I was just like, I need a fucking nap, dude. Whoa, jeez.
Right. Yeah. Draining, to say the least. Red flags for friendships. I'm going to be real honest with the audience. When Nick and I brought this up, I didn't mean to turn this into a Brewski bashing episode, but it is a good litmus test, friendship, to look back and see red flags. And the next one on the list is they feel overly competitive with you. Was Brewski not constantly trying to take me down a peg, constantly trying to win the argument? Even when he was just out in right field making no sense, he would not back off. He had to win.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could even if we were to ask Brewski, like, do you feel like Steve has an arrogance that you just want to, overtake, that he would say yes.
And I have other people in my life that don't like the whole Steve was right thing. Like, I do that on the show because I know it's poking at people, but yeah. I don't have to be right about everything. I just am right about some things, and I will stand by those things. But you've seen examples before where if someone can prove me wrong, I drop it. I don't want to be some fool dying on a hill of idiocy. So if you can factually point me out or debate me in a corner like my firstborn did on the death penalty, like we had this great debate, and I felt like Neil won the debate. And I had to tell them, like, okay, you got a valid point. I'm going to back off this. And so, yeah, I don't want to be the fool that can't, that always has to be right per se, but I don't know why it bothers some people when I am right.
Well, because you talk about it more than most people do, I mean, listen, you are a great debater. I would say a master debater. So I think it bugs people because they're like, damn it, he's right. And he's going to let me know it. You know what I mean? But Brewski took it to a whole different level. Again, I feel like maybe we combine two of the topics we just mentioned. I think he took that personally. Like, you're not going to get me again, you bastard.
Right. I always wonder what with a Brewski, like, why aren't you just proud? We're all on the same team here. We're all on the same show. Don't you like that we have a master debater on the show, somebody who makes valid points? Like, why is that not a good team win?
I don't know why it did, but it did. So now we know.
Do you feel like with your brothers, do you feel there's some competitiveness there? I know you're brothers, not friends, but is there, when you guys debate politics or stuff, do you hear each other out, or is somebody who's always trying to win that competition?
I feel like for the most part, we hear each other out. And when we don't, this is a rare relationship. I've said this on the show before that I don't have a lot of relationships like this in my life where we differ so big on politics, but we can have good conversation. There are times where either one of us will want to make that point and be right. And usually when it happens the next day, we'll call each other and be like, yeah, sorry about last night. I got a little worked up, and bring it back down. But every once in a while, I think we compete over stuff for sure, but we realize it.
Yeah. Something I've noticed, in that Reddit argument I had this week and, what has been now 7-8 months ago when I was dating, there was a few conservative women that were okay with the idea of dating me, even though I was very liberal, and I put that on my dating profiles. Trump supporters keep swiping. Like, for some reason, conservatives feel like we shouldn't be holding their narrow-minded views against them. They can like us liberals because we're open-minded, progressive people. They don't find that as being a check mark against us some ways. Like, they won't vote the same way as us, but they're open to embracing us, but we're not open to embracing them. And they somehow were trying to paint that as we're the bad people, the narrow-minded people. But we're holding it against you because you have terrible views about gay people, about transgender people, about science, about minorities. Like, we are on the right side of this. Did you get upset when Hans Gruber was thrown off the building at the end of Die Hard? Like, they're the bad guys. You're supposed to cheer for the good guys. Yeah. You're supposed to take a principled stand. Do you find conservatives, they don't look at it that way for some reason? And I think it's their lack of moral compass and their guilty conscience.
100%. And it's starting to it comes out in different ways. We see it again with this Trump assassination attempt where they're like, you guys are being real insensitive about this. The man almost died. And then we look back and we say, oh, we didn't think that's how you wanted to act, because when Paul Pelosi was attacked with a hammer, you guys made Halloween costumes out of it. Right. So, now is it my turn to be the adult in the room? Now you want me to be the adult?
Could you imagine if Biden got shot in the ear, grazed in the ear, or whatever? Like, the jokes would be relentless left and right. And, one of the videos we've got some hatred on was my unpopular opinion that Trump rallies are the same as Klan rallies, therefore why should I cry a river over the firefighter that got killed at the Trump rally? And some of the people I argued with, I said to them, let's just say there's a BLM protest. Violence breaks out. One of the BLM Antifa guys gets killed. Are you Trumpers going to tell me with a straight face that you would feel bad for the Antifa guy that got killed?
No, of course not, because you feel like that's the bad guys.
Yes. But can we not zoom back out and see, like, who's the good guys, who's the bad guys, who believes in treating people nicely and fairly, who believes in science? You guys are the Bond villains. You don't believe in science. You don't believe in treating people well. You want to undermine democracy, government. You want to overthrow things.
You don't want women to have a choice when it comes to their own bodies. Like, if anything, you should hate us for being too nice and too reasonable and logical.
Yes, it's crazy. All right, moving on. Red flags and friendships. They make you feel guilty for having other friends.
That's
Does this ring any bells?
Listen, dude, I will tell you this, okay? I'm going to say this. I got to be kind of careful. Okay, I'll just say this. My mother has friends, and she's told me repeatedly that when the two friends are in the same room to each other, they fight like jealous people to get my mother's attention, and then it makes it really uncomfortable. So she doesn't want to hang around both of them together anymore. She only separate. And I think that is so high school and so catty. I mean, I'm secure with the friends that I have at this point in my life. Maybe in high school I would have felt that way. Maybe I'll get into it when I'm old again. But no, I don't have that in my life right now.
No, I don't ever recall ever feeling that way. I mean, in my high school age, we were all the same group of friends from elementary on, but I don't recall there being like jealousy that someone was closer to the other. But again, circling back to Brewski, did you start to pick up on the show that he would make comments about you and Hannes, your friendship? Oh, you're so good. Of course you have his back. The two of you got this thing going on. Like, he was jealous of our friendship.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, he did say that stuff, like where he felt like he was, again, just being kind of victimized. Like, of course, you guys 2 against 1, you know.
We couldn't just agree with each other. It had to be some friend bond.
Right. Because you and I, let's be honest, that's one of the great things about our friendship. While we agree about most things in life, we do disagree on things. And that's been one of the greatest parts of our friendship, that we've been able to disagree on different things and still love each other, you know?
Yeah. You and I have had some arguments, mainly on air, maybe occasionally off air, but yeah, they never get like visceral and heated, and there's no like name calling or something. Like, somehow we can agree to disagree or hear each other out in the way you're supposed to debate and argue, but we can do that. So, yeah. Which makes me feel bad about some of my thoughts and opinions, makes me feel like I have to hold back. It becomes mentally draining and exhausting with some of these people.
Yeah. And it must have been, Brewski must have found all of this exhausting too, because, I mean, he couldn't take it anymore. He left, right? Yeah. So he must have found something about all of this exhausting. I've only talked to Brewski one time on text. Oh, I take that back. 2 times on text since the show left. I don't know. I mean, he made his way out of this program, and now we're starting to see that, yeah, you guys did definitely have all these red flags.
Yeah. Let me just tick through a couple here, because they all are just in the same category. They're unreliable and inconsistent. He was definitely unreliable and inconsistent. They don't respect your time or your energy, or they're always trying to change you. I mean, these are all things that have been well documented on this very show.
Yeah, I feel like on one level, he was very consistent and very, he always showed up for the show. He didn't, try and get out of it. And maybe sometimes he should have, because he was in such a bad mood. It would have been just better to go forward without having to deal with that. But maybe towards the end, it's just all kind of a blur for me.
Well, it was definitely, every time he's quit the show, he does it in the middle of it, which is definitely not respectful of our time or energy, the product we're doing here. It's also not responsible of our energy to be fighting the fights we're fighting. And I come to the show with articles and opinions, and he just, you're wrong. It's not credible. Some policy, that's being very disrespectful of time and energy. I mean, We're creating a product here. I know we're friends and that comes across, and it's supposed to, but I hate to tell you people, we're conscious of the fact that this is a product that we're creating and putting out there.
Oh, yeah. And you're right when it comes to that. He would say that, the show is number 1. But then with his actions, when he quit in the middle of a show, it doesn't really show me the same thing.
Right. And the last one I'll throw out there is just that you have a gut feeling that something is not right. And as I look back on every failed relationship, and that's 99% women, but Brewski is now in that category in my mind of somebody, when we first broke up a couple of weeks ago, I thought, I'm going to miss the good stuff. But then the further away I get, the more I realized how toxic it was and how undermining he was to me, and that's just, you can't put up with that kind of stuff. And those are painful realizations. But I did have a gut feeling. I've been feeling for a while, I don't think this guy actually likes me.
That's what makes this whole thing difficult. I feel in a weird, odd situation, because on one level, I completely agree with you. On another level, I've had a lot of love for Brewski for a lot of years, and that hasn't all gone away from me, but I've definitely realized a few things and of where he is. And we all change a little bit, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's the other thing, we've known each other for a long time. And as I look back, I start to wonder, where did we go off the rails? And I think it was somewhere back in Seattle. 20-something years ago. But we've all been friends ever since. And, you guys maybe contacted each other more during some of the off years of the show. But I still reached out to him every birthday, every Christmas, anytime his dad was in the hospital. I always would, I felt like we were maintaining a friendship, but yeah, I think I was just wrong.
It'd be interesting to know his take on the whole thing. Brewski's also one of those guys that usually can wind himself down after he steps away from the fire and cools down a little bit. And this is the first time that option hasn't been available,
Right.
So,
one of the ones I skipped over on that list was you won't take accountability for mistakes you've made. some relationships have giant red flags, be them romantic or friends. So I guess those are ones to look out for in the friend topic.
Maybe some of these red flags are in your relationship. Hopefully you learned something today. I would like to, as an instructor of people, just in general, I instruct a lot of different things, but I would like to instruct you on how to have integrity in life, because I have so much of it that I would like to share some of it with you, okay?
Please do. I won't be threatened by it or anything else.
Okay, good. I came across an article and it was like, oh, you know what? These men with integrity, these are things that they refuse in their life. And this makes them have a ton of integrity and people that you want to be around and should be around. The first one that they talk about is men with integrity refuse to lie to gain an advantage of something. If we have not seen this with presidential candidate Donald Trump, that he has zero integrity because, I mean, he lies more than anyone that we know. Think about people in your own life. Have friends who lie to you. I mean, lies really tell the truth behind the person.
It's interesting. Politically speaking, of course, you're spot on. You know, Trump is a master of lying to gain an advantage or get what he wants. But I don't know why I keep thinking about the end of Die Hard. But, you know, John McClane, he was hiding that gun behind his back. He was lying about that. Hans told him to drop his weapons, and he dropped it. But then he reached back there and he pulled that gun out. He was lying to gain an advantage. That's a good way to do it, right?
I don't think he was lying. He was sneaking. Okay, he said there may be a difference.
My point is, when the good guys do something, it's always okay. It's when the bad guys do things that you got to look the other way.
Only on some levels, though, dude, because you know what? If whenever I find out the Democratic Party starts lying, I'm just like, what the F is that, dude? Why are you lying? We don't have to lie. We've got the facts on our side. You don't have to lie.
Oh, you're right. I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek. We have been calling out the Democratic Party of late. We posted a video last week about the fact that Nick and I have some level of anger towards the Democrats and Biden, and I think a lot of people do. But we actually got a lot of blue, I don't want to call it shaming, but a lot of people are just like, nope, not angry at all, totally positive. And I think you're in some level of denial. It's okay to acknowledge this whole scenario was not ideal, the way Biden waited forever, then finally dropped out. You know?
Yes, dude. Come on. If we would have had this 6 months ago to be able to plan and have people on the stage that we could pick from, I'm happy with the pick. I'm not saying that I'm not, but if we would have had this 6-7 months ago now, it would have been a good thing. So yeah, you can be a little upset.
That's integrity.
Yes.
You're showing integrity by pointing. Yes. Sometimes both sides can mess this up. So kudos.
Yes. Thank you. And right back at you. How about breaking promises? You will not break a promise if you have any integrity. I've seen this in relationships in my life with parents to children. You know, it really hits people when you break a promise, not only to a child or a spouse or a friend. I don't trust you as much anymore. I may give you one and be like, oh, that was a one-off. You know, he broke his promise. He did not mean to. But if you break your promises with me more than a few times, I'm definitely questioning you.
Absolutely. If there is a scenario where you have to break a quote-unquote promise, you have to do it with integrity. You have to go to the person and say, hey, I know I told you I would never do this one thing, but let me explain why I have to break that promise. And if you do it open and honest like that with integrity, most people I would think would respect it. But I can't think of a scenario where I've made a distinct promise to somebody that I then would just violate and not address it, disregard it, or anything else. Because, of course, that's a lack of integrity.
Yeah. I feel like a lot has changed in this world, but I feel like it used to, you know, people say like, oh, that's my handshake and it's as strong as oak. Like when you gave your word or a promise, like, oh, I'm going to take his word on that. But, you know, if I didn't do it, I was going to feel terrible about it. It's not like that anymore. People just say like, oh yeah, I promise I'll do that. And then they don't. So it's happening a lot out there with people.
Right. I will say sometimes I promise like I'll only put the tip in and then maybe a little more goes in. Like who's to blame for that? Really? Just
no one. Yeah, that's understandable because I mean, we forget sometimes that when we say just the tip, like the tip is going to change your mind. You know, like it's hard, dude.
It is hard, which is why it's easy to get more than just the tip.
That's right. Next one, lame. Disrespect others. You don't do that if you have integrity, obviously. I mean, we know that.
Well,
how about,
hold on, though. This comes back to the don't ever judge people. Like, I can disrespect a Klan rally person. Like, sometimes judgment comes from a good moral compass place. Sometimes judgment gets a bad rap.
That's interesting. I like the way you put it, and it's thought-provoking. This says that respect for others, regardless of their status or background, is a hallmark of a man with integrity. He treats everyone with dignity and kindness, knowing that everyone deserves respect. I don't know if that's true anymore, dude.
They deserve the respect until they open their dumb mouth and give you a reason to take that back. So, for example, I will hold the door open for any stranger walking into a business. Now, if as that guy's walking up, he's like, thanks for holding the door, vote Trump 2024, I'm going to slam the door in his face. But I give you that latitude until I know you're an idiot. So you should give respect until the respect is not earned.
No, that's a good way to look at it. How about avoiding responsibility? I mean, this makes you a man with integrity if you do not avoid your responsibilities. I think it's true.
Well, when more than the tip slides in, I own up to that. I'm sorry. Okay. It just happens. Otherwise, of course, owning up to your mistakes is a classic thing that you should do with good integrity.
Hey, dude, that's a good question. Is just putting the tip in, is that just a high school thing? Like, does that happen into manhood? Like, I've been married for so long. Do you say that to people still? Like, just the tip?
I don't know that I've ever said it. I own it. Like, no, I want lock, stock, and two smoking barrels.
I want in, baby.
Right. That's my integrity. I tell you my intentions up front. There have been some scenarios, though, where, backdoor fun, it's not all it's cracked up to be in the movies. Like, sometimes you can only get the tip in. I mean, sometimes it's pretty restricted back there. So,
a way to look at it from all different angles and advantages. The next one on this list of things that men with integrity refuse to do is to take unfair advantage. That's gold star.
This is still the tip thing of taking unnecessary advantage of somebody. Just the tip, I promise.
Yeah, we just decided we're not doing the tip thing anymore, dude. You haven't done it in years. Or you've never done it. I haven't done it for years.
I'm so distracted. What was this? You don't take advantage of people? Is that what it was?
You don't take unfair advantage. And this, this comes into the conversation about, where racism and the definition of lots of different styles of racism can happen when you take unfair advantage of people. You can obviously do it with any race, but this is what we're talking about. Unfair advantage. Why are they so far down on the totem pole? Why aren't they up on the stage with us? And then we compete for things.
That's fair. There are some scenarios, the Death Star at the end of Star Wars. Was that an unfair advantage to shoot right in that one little hole that would blow the whole thing up? Was the crane kick at the end of Karate Kid, was that an unfair advantage to take? That didn't seem like a legal kick,
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was illegal. I think he got in trouble for it, didn't he?
I think so. There's a classic episode of How I Met Your Mother where Barney Stinson is explaining that Johnny is the star of Karate Kid, that some punk kid moved into town and, trained and did this illegal kick at the end and stole his glory. Like, Johnny is the hero of that movie. Danielson's just some punk.
Yes, that's such a great episode because Johnny's in that episode.
Yes, he does do it. So, yeah. I don't know. My point is sometimes an unfair advantage is maybe how you win a battle or a war, but I don't want to lose point of what the article means. In everyday society, we should obviously not be taking unfair advantage. So, yes.
Yeah, that's right. How about being misleading people in relationships? Men with integrity would never mislead anyone in relationships, and that puts a lot of men off the board of integrity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All jokes aside on this one, I don't have the mental time or energy to mislead someone in a relationship, be it romantic or friend. It's too hard to keep up that front and remember what lies you've told. I would just, with friends or women, I just want to be me. And if you don't accept that, I don't have the time for this mental gymnastics to put up a front for you.
I agree with you, dude. I don't either. But I know a lot of men mislead in relationships, and it goes back to the classic old, like, I told her I loved her, so she'd sleep with me. That type of thing. Like, we see it joked around about in movies and stuff like that. It's always happening. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that mislead in relationships. Are you doing it? You don't have any integrity.
Even the dirt bike dudes I ride with, like, I don't want to put up some front. Like, don't talk politics, so I don't have to go there. But if we haven't yet, I'll just not go there. I'm not going to sit there and lie to try to paint some perception to get you to like me. Like, ugh, who needs it?
Yeah. The next one on this list, these are things that men with integrity refuse to do. Ignore injustice. I mean, this is another gold star one. I mean, if you're a woman or a man or just a person with integrity, you won't ignore injustice. I mean, there's nothing that gets me fired up more, to be honest.
Yeah. This is what we were talking about, though, with the moral compass of the left versus the right. The right ignores injustices all the time. It's what a lack of empathy is. It's what not caring that kids are being put in cages at the borders or gay people are being beat up in back alleys. Like, it seems like the entire right-wing mega group thrives on ignoring injustice.
Or just refuses to put themselves in any situation where they could think like, oh, what would it be like if I were in that situation? I wouldn't like it. They can't put themselves in that situation. So that's no empathy. Yeah, you're going to be fine with injustice. It's not happening to me. I'll tell you a story that I was talking to a young person that was 14 years old. And I asked him, like, what do you think about the landscape of what's going on politically in our country right now? And he was like, you know what, dude, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm 14. I was like, well, that doesn't mean you can't be interested in what's going on. He was like, if it's not happening to me, I really don't care about it. Okay. And I was really angry. Yeah. I mean, I didn't snap back at him, but as I thought about it, I was like, you know, I want to say something to him. Like that's no way to live. Like, that's crazy. You have a duty to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. I'm hoping he gets that as he gets a little bit older, but I don't know. Is that the way that kids are thinking today?
It's not entirely age inappropriate for a 14-year-old to be kind of self-centered. I mean, Their world is only their world. They're having people provide for them. They're just going to school or whatever. Like, you want to hope that they would look a little bigger than that. If that same kid at age 24, 34 is thinking that way, then that's a gigantic red flag. But it's the whole, like, why are you so immature? Like, because you're immature, literally, by definition. You're a kid still. Wow. But for adults, for the megas to be thinking that way, that if it's not happening to me, why do I care about anyone else? That's a freaking problem. You should grow into empathy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. And I just didn't know when it should come.
I'd be a good uncle in those scenarios and try to say, like, hey, buddy, like, maybe you should look at it, plant that seed. But I wouldn't guilt him too hard if it doesn't just bloom overnight. But those words will register in his head. That I remember Uncle Nick telling me that thing about gay people or minorities or whatever.
Yeah, the reason it didn't, you're right. And the reason it didn't really freak me out as I continued to think about it, I was like, how does he treat these people? How does he treat these people? And he's treating everybody the right way. So I know his views are already there, but yeah, I'm going to need you to stand up for people, dude. It's just part of life. You want to be in my tribe? Like, once you're over 20, you got to stand up for people.
Now, plant that seed and stay on them, but yeah, keep it age appropriate. That's not, maybe it's a little disappointing-ish, but it's not crazy. So,
yeah, no, good.
Time for one more.
All right. How about, let's see. Will you do this if you have integrity? Probably not. This article thinks not. Betray trust. That's a big one, dude. It can happen on so many levels. I don't want my trust betrayed, and I think you don't have much leeway with me when you betray my trust.
Yeah, that's fair. One of the issues I'm working on in therapy is I have these tinging little speckles of codependency in my life, apparently. And my therapist has tried to say that the one glaring thing that I do all the time that she feels is a codependent, red flag or whatever. I put everyone else in my life ahead of me. I'm always looking out for everyone else. I always try to I don't want to violate your trust. I want to look out for you. I want to help you. I want to do right by you. And I feel like that's a positive attribute. But where it becomes codependent is when I don't care at all about myself. I only care about others. And I've tried to do a better job of, like, of course I care about you, my kids. I care about Kennedy. Like, I care about my parents. Like, I think that's a good attribute. And certainly for you all, that's a great attribute. That's my flaw. put everyone else ahead of me, but I got to do better balancing it. I got to do a better job, affirming myself and looking out for myself a little bit better. But just as a general rule, no, I don't feel that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that you do have to temper it because they always say like, I can't be my best for you, if I'm constantly being shat on to make your life great. I got to be my best me. So I'll take it here and there. But yeah, you need to be able to let people down if they're going to be let down, right?
Yeah, but again, these are sort of nuances. The general concept of breaking somebody's trust, of course you should never do that if you have integrity. It's one of the textbook definitions of what integrity is.
Yeah. What will I do when no one's looking? When no one's going to find out. Well, that's the definition of integrity, right? So. Right.
And mega people, what do you think Trump's saying about you when the microphone's not on? We know. We've heard it. He looks down his nose at you people. He would never invite you to Mar-a-Lago, consider you friends. He is a man with no integrity, and that's a great example of it.
But he does love the poorly educated. Okay. So you got that in your...
Usually he says honest things like that. So, yeah.
Right.
Believe him.
Well, these are things about integrity, and now you know. So if you're doing things wrong, you've got a week to course correct yourself before we are back to check up on you once again.
If this discussion has upset you, then you're looking in a mirror and you're seeing bad things. So, yeah. We will be back next week to enlighten, educate, and shame some people. You can find us online, thevocalminority.net.
See our comment line, and then dial it and leave a comment. 844-48-VOCAL. The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve, 2 podcasts each and every week.
Like them, share them, social medias, and follow us on the podcast sites, please. So we'll be back next week, everyone.
Hey, everybody, it's Oprah. This has been a production of The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve. New podcasts are released twice a week. Thanks for listening. You get a car, and you, champion, get all 180 pounds of Oprah lovin'. Get you a big bite of that.